Meta Platforms have announced a major shift in its approach to political content on Facebook, Instagram and Threads. The company has scrapped its US fact-checking program and reduced restrictions on topics like immigration and gender identity. CEO Mark Zuckerberg says the changes reflect a desire to prioritise freedom of expression and address criticism from conservatives ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's second term. Meta also plans to replace fact-checking with a community notes system similar to the one seen on X, and will stop proactively scanning for hate speech, focusing instead on high-severity violations. The company has also made moves to strengthen ties with the incoming administration, elevating Republican policy executive Joel Kaplan and UFC CEO Dana White to key positions. Meta's shift comes as the company faces backlash over censorship and bias, sparking changes in its content moderation practices. Let's listen in to what Mark Zuckerberg has said.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact-checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
We'll now speak to our correspondent Aditya Wadwan. Aditya, I would like to really look at this shift coming from Meta, coming from Mark Zuckerberg. It's a change that we've seen already on X in terms of censorship, but what could this mean for Meta and their several platforms moving forward?
Well, Josh, you see, this is the Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg has, followed the steps of Elon Musk, the earlier, because they were also removed this concept of fact checkers from their social media platforms, and now they have reduced with community. They have reduced it with the community notes. A similar thing. Let's put this into perspective. Similar thing happened in India as well. When the government of India planned to make a fact-checking unit, that was a partial censorship which it tried to create. Like all the content that will go on social media will be checked by as per the government. When they had formed this fact-checking unit, they said that all the content going to the social media will be checked by the fact-checking unit, which was later the Supreme Court of India had reversed that decision. So this is a similar thing that Mark Zuckerberg has done, removing the concept of fact checkers from Facebook and replacing it with content notes, just to reduce the censorship, so that no one could restrict the free flow of news on the social media platform. Yes, George, back to you in the studio.
We're now joined by Professor Rohan Gunaratne, an international affairs expert, live from Singapore. Rohan, we have seen relationships between Donald Trump and Mark Zuckerberg be strained in the past. Donald Trump, of course, was banned from Facebook for a certain time. But this move that we're now seeing, do you think this has got big implications, not just for the social media platforms, but for popular culture and the impact that social media has on America moving forward? While we fix the issues that we're having there with Rohan, we'll now move to Manan Dwiveda, a foreign affairs expert. I'll ask you the same question, Manan. We have seen a fractured relationship between Zuckerberg and Donald Trump in the past, but are we now moving towards a world in which the impact that social media has on politics and also the people of America being more vital? And what will the impact be of this lack of censorship that we might see moving forward?
I particularly believe that there has to be a freedom of expression involved in the manner in which people utilize the social media. And there are certain, because there are certain national security concerns which are involved here. Some sort of an information can be very tricky, can be very sensitive. For example, I can cite out an incident in 2008 when Mumbai was attacked by Pakistani terrorists, Asmal Kazab and the group. At that particular point of time, because of the complete free flow of media, information bytes, both sound and audio, video bytes, the Pakistani insurgents who were masterminding the plot in Mumbai at that particular instant, they were able to give directions via the television, or they were able to know what their cohorts, that is the terror mongers who were active in Mumbai in the Taj Palace Hotel, how far they are succeeding and how far they are processing. That kind of a thing. And in the present context, if we look at it, we are going to find that there are both pros and cons of what is happening in WhatsApp, what is happening in Facebook, and what is happening in Instagram. For example, a person might be very much moved or perturbed, or might be very sentimentally moved by an international development. So he might come out with an emotive first retort, an emotive first reaction. But that might be hurting the sensibilities of the people on the other side of the fence. So I particularly feel that a lot of, in Asia, if we talk about Asia, specifically India, then we have to look into these norms. We have to look into the legislation, which should be put in place if a balance has to be reached as far as meta checking is concerned. Now I personally feel that people might not be so responsible, because they said ki community notes and corrections and additions and deletions by the Facebook posters will be the panacea for this quibble. But I particularly feel that there needs to be a balanced approach. And if we go back in history, on 25th of September in 1789, this issue first cropped up, where to the American Constitution 1 to 10 amendments were passed, wherein it was, but it all happened in the context of national security. And if we, as very nicely the anchor has talked about popular culture, if we talk about the Iraq war, where America intervened, or the Vietnam war, where the Americans intervened, or if we talk about the Spanish-US war in 1898, where Americans and Spanish people fought, William Randolph Hearst gave just a three-worded clarion call. He said that my reporters, you give me the pictures, I'll give you the war. The same kind of legerdemain occurred in Vietnam, where the My Lai massacre and the Buddhist monks being set on fire, they became part of an international and global imagery and a kind of a simulacra. So I think there are both the sides attached to it, because sometimes radicalization has also come up as a major issue. For example, we look at how Arab Spring came into being. For instance, people started chatting with each other from Tunisia. A cloth merchant who had nothing to do with politics started it all in Tunisia. And apart from that, if we look at the Iraq war, then multiple and myriad reflections were being displayed by the American media or by the global media, wherein people did not know what to lap up as part of their daily routine of news and what to reject. So I definitively think that a large iota of regulation and screening by the government of the country or some kind of a global authority or a regulatory body is required if tranquility, sobriety, decency and national security concerns are to be met very effectively. Going back to Zuckerberg and the American scenario, I personally feel that Zuckerberg and the rest of them want to improve their relationship with the Republicans or with the conservatives, as President Donald Trump will be proudly anointed as the head of the state for America on 20th of January 2025. So I think it might have to do with commercial aspects too, and a kind of a political one-upmanship or some sort of a political correctness which is being attempted by Mark Zuckerberg. But we have to have full faith in what President Donald Trump will do, because when it comes to insurgency, when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to radicalization, then there needs to be a gatekeeper on the social media which can erase, delete, and which can keep a tab on what is being said and what is not being said or how it is being said. That would
Yes.
be my
Yes,
perspective.
I want to pick up on that. Thank you, Manan. I'm going to go to Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who we now have with us. Looking at the potential extremism that we're seeing on social media, we're seeing explicit content now on X with the lack of moderation. Is this something that you think we might see on Meta and their platforms? And what do you think the impact could be moving forward, especially in the wake of the recent New Orleans attack? Do you think that these social media platforms may become a hotbed for radicalization or potentially extremism, and what can these platforms do to prohibit that?
The main medium used by the extremists and the terrorists to drive radicalization that leads to attacks, that inspires and instigates attacks, is social media. 80 to 90% of all the extremist websites, blog sites, and other platforms are hosted on US and European servers. It is because of the freedom of expression and other matters to do with their legal frameworks. So what is so important today is to ensure that social media companies take responsibility. We should also have laws, a legal and a policy framework where governments will be able to investigate and prosecute executives of these tech companies if they do not remove extremist material, because it is this extremist material that causes radicalization and develops support for terrorism and also to perpetrate terrorist attacks. So it is a national and an international security imperative that governments work together to ensure that social media is not misused and abused to advance the goals of these terrorist and extremist groups.
Okay, we'll now go to Thomas Porteous, our anchor and correspondent, who joins us in the newsroom. I'd like to go back in to the impacts of social media and what we might see, Thomas. Looking at the way that X has changed since Elon Musk has come into power, do you think we're going to see something similar with Meta and their platforms? And how do you think that could impact the country of the United States moving forward?
Now, whether we like it or not, social media is a huge part of our lives. Meta has over 4 billion eyeballs across their platforms. We have seen that Mark Zuckerberg has branded this as an X-like change, which means these fact checkers will be removed, which also means that disinformation, like on X, will be sparse. We will have to see how this is monitored moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.